Higher order thinking is the future for teaching, and the reflective practitioner is involved in helping students develop higher order skills in terms of the curriculum being taught, as well as the way they're being taught and how they're learning. And the key problem faced by reflective practitioners in the 21st century is that learning has been fragmented into lists and criteria to be achieved. And this can often be seen as focusing on lower order learning. And the consequence of this is that too much learning then is actually not connected nor has any depth. What we see in curricula are that there can be lists of knowledge to be learned and skills to be acquired. And what we can see from teachers applying those curricula, teachers who are not reflecting critically on their practice, is that instruction becomes somewhat fragmented and inconsistent. And also, what happens as a consequence of these things is that learning tends to be dominated by memorization and recall rather than thinking. And so what is missing is a coherence and a connection in terms of teaching and learning, and how this relates to the depth of understanding acquired by learners in the classroom. And so what we need to consider as reflective practitioners, as well as what we know, is that we need to consider how things are being taught, but also how things are being learned. And students are learning something all the time, and they're learning in very different ways. And what we need to do as reflective practitioners is think about how we're teaching all of them if they're all learning in different ways. And this idea of the disconnect between higher order goals and lower order results is picked up in the literature. And I can read here, one writer said, "All too often we focus on a narrow collection of well-defined tasks and train students to execute those tasks in routine ways." And this recognizes the fact that we tend to be somewhat mechanistic in terms of teaching and learning. And further, the writer goes on to say, then we test the students on those tasks, and we focus on the problems and overcoming those problems, and then congratulate ourselves on the fact that students have learned something powerful. So what the writer is suggesting here is that we're not thinking critically enough about our roles as teachers and being honest enough about what we're trying to achieve. And the writer cites a number of examples to categorize this reflection on teaching and learning. And it's a reflection on the lower order outcomes which tend to be achieved because we're not focusing on higher order thinking in the classrooms. And he also goes on to give a number of examples from a range of education provision at the higher education level, as well as in the school, secondary and primary levels of learning. And so what we need to consider in terms of being reflective practitioners is how we're bridging the gap, narrowing the gap between higher order thinking and the lower order results, changing the lower order results into higher order results.